Welcome back, everyone. This video is to show you some data cleaning and manipulation. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to move where I'm typing, so I apologize that it's at the bottom of the screen, but hopefully you'll still be able to see it and read it. So let's do some data cleaning, data manipulation, and just some data checking. So it's a good idea to always look at your data before you know it. People say this is like getting to know your data or being very familiar with your data. The first way that you could do that is just by looking at summary statistics. So we'll type out the command summary, and then in parentheses we can just put a whole data set. So R is an object-oriented language, meaning that every command, not everyone, but most of the ones we'll talk about, ask for an object. And an object, this is an object, exam is an object, flavor, ice cream, empty cars, relationship, those are all objects. And I don't have time to get into what objects mean, but basically it's a box where you can put data. I guess I will talk about it. It's kind of like a box that may have different things inside of it. So a box lives on your bookshelf, and every time you want to access anything in a box, like a specific toy, like my son, he loves cars, so we have all of his cars in a box that's a toy box on the bookshelf. When he wants a car, he has to walk over, grab the bookshelf, or go to the bookshelf, grab the box out of the bookshelf, and then take the car out. So there's that few step process of grab the box and grab the toy out of it. If you want to just grab the box, that's the whole object. So I'm going to ask for summary statistics on everything in the box, everything in the entire data set, and click enter, and it pulls it up. So I've got a minimum, a first quartile, median, mean, third quartile, max for all of the columns: MPG, cylinder, displacement, horsepower, gears, within my empty car data set. I could do that for any of the data sets that I want. If I want to look at, so those are the summary statistics, mean, min, max, median, whatever. If you want to know the frequency of who said what, it's kind of like looking more at the distribution. The best one I've found is in summary tools, then : come down to frequency, and then we'll put empty cars. So that does it for every single column in the data set. Now often you're not going to want that, again, because we said empty cars, I want it for everything in the box. But you see that it broke it down into columns by looking at empty cars, $MPG. So that would be equivalent to my son going to the box and taking a specific car, his red truck is his favorite, out of the box through using this number sign. So I'll show you that again. So summary tools, right there, come down to frequency, and now I'm going to say empty cars, $, which is shift 4, and now it shows me the different columns that I have in my data set. I can grab one of them and press enter, and now it just does it for the specific column that I asked. So again, I got the box out of the bookshelf, and then using a $sign says grab a specific toy, like my son's red car, out of the bookshelf. And that's something you have to do for everything in R. If you want to grab multiple columns, there is a way to do that as well. So you can say summary, just because it's easy. You say empty cars, and then you do square brackets, a comma, C, and then in quotations you put the name of the columns that you want, separated by commas. So this gave me just the summary statistics for MPG, cylinders, and displacement. Now, some of you may be wondering what that first comma was. Well, within the square brackets, it's saying what rows do you want and what columns do you want. So I could have said like 0 through 10, and that gives me different summary statistics because I only used rows 0 through 10 in my summary statistics. If I leave it blank, it says do it for all rows. And this C, I believe it's called a matrix, or no, a vector. It's called a vector in R, possibly. It's just a data set that says, give me a subset of the columns. So that's not the only use for it, but it's the use that I find most common in my work. So, like I said, up here we have the summary is the command, empty cars is the toy box. Say, for all rows in my data set, grab those columns. Now, if you're just going to be using one data set, you can attach your data set, and that says, I'm just going to be playing in this box. The only toys that I care about are in this box, so I don't want to have to access them every time. I don't want to have to tell my dad what box I'm using, so I want to just attach it. And then I can say summary and go straight for the column, and it gives it to me. That's kind of helpful, but I find that it's just as helpful. It's just as easy for me if I name my data set something useful to go and just do it this way or do it this way. But it's up to you. That is an option. And when you're done, you have to say detach. So now if I do summary MPG, oh, I guess it did work, but it gave me something else. So again, it gave me something, but I wasn't sure. I'm not exactly sure what this is. It's not the same as what I had before, so I don't recommend doing that. Okay, so if you, now that you have your data, you're working with it, let's talk about some data management things that you could do. So you could, how long is this video? Maybe we'll go, no, we'll just keep going. So if you want to rename a column, there are a few different ways of doing this. The one that I like the most is from the library data.table. Again, this should probably be already done, but I'll show you this. It's good to reload your libraries. It doesn't do any harm. And the function is called set names. So then you tell it what data set you want to do. So we'll do flavor, and I'll show you flavor just to show you. So flavor is the one that it doesn't have variable names, but it has v1, 2, 3, and 4. So flavor goes in the first entry, and then it's followed by a comma. And then you say old equals, we're going to create that vector, and then give it all the names within quotations of the old values. v1, v2, comma, v3. It's case sensitive, so be aware of that. v4, and that's all of them. And again, v1, v2, v3, v4. And then you go outside all the parentheses, put in new equals, create my vector, and say I want to call v1 name, call v2 age, call v3 favorite, and call v4 gender. Okay, so when I run this, watch what happens up here. I'm going to click enter, and maybe it didn't work. Okay, so when I reload it, then it does change name, age, favorite, and gender. So I've renamed the columns so that now if I want to go summary flavor $, it now gives me the new names. So I can say, oh, look, it doesn't really make sense to do that actually, because I just asked for the summary statistics of a categorical variable, which doesn't really make sense. We'll do age instead. Okay, the mean age is 19.33. Okay, so if you want to rename a data set, there's the simplest way that I've found to do it is just copy the data set to a different name. So I'm going to take exam and copy it to a different name, and I could just call it my data, assign it exam. Now I have my data, I have exam, and well, that's not really that helpful right now. Like, imagine if you brought in something that had a really, really long name, or you decided you didn't like the name because you have to type it out all the time. You could rename it something smaller. Another useful way of using this is if you know I've got 11 variables here, but I don't want all of them in my data set, then I'm just going to grab a few of them. So we'll do it with exam. So exam has ID, gender, age, GPA, ACT, SAT, SAT, athlete, all of those. But what if in my analysis I don't want all of those? Just for simplicity, I could create a smaller data set by saying I want it to be exam, the square brackets again, comma. Remember, I could pick just some number of rows and put it before the comma if I wanted, create a vector, and call it gender, age, and GPA. So now my data small just has gender, age, and GPA in it. You can also do it through the number of the column. So if you wanted to do like columns 2 through 4 and column 6, you would come up here and say, oh look, this, if you hover over it, it's column 2, 3, 4, and 6. My data small 2 has 2, 3, 4, and 6 from the original 2, 3. Do you see how it says column 3, 4, and 6 there? So you could do it through names, you could do it through number. Another way is by like creating scales. And this is a little more complicated, but not much. So you say, give the name of the data set that the scales are in, relationship, square brackets, comma, because I want all rows, and then GREPL, RSAT, grab my names from relationship. Now, I'll give you more context about this. So if I open up relationship, my scale are all the columns that start with RSAT 1, 2, 3, and 4 that I want to create an average of, or a latent variable. So I want to just grab those 4. So I'm going to, in my relationship, I'm going to grab any of the columns that have that in their names. I know that can be a little confusing, but I'll show it to you now. So this was the whole data set, age, gender, education, plus the 4 RSAT items. Now if I go to my scale, I just have the 4 RSAT items. So hopefully that gave you some context, but it can be a little complicated. Now let's go with recoding. So recoding happens when you have a categorical variable that you want to make dichotomous, possibly for regression analysis. Yeah, so you can recode. I apologize about that. I was thinking about something else. So I like recoding into a different variable so that I never have to worry about changing my data. So I'll go to exam, and I've got this race variable. So I'll first look at the frequency for exam $race, and it looks like I've got 0 who are 24, 24 people said they were a 0, 12 people said they were a 1, 9 people said they were a 2, 4 people said they were a 3. So I'm going to guess that 0 is probably coded as white, and maybe we'll say this is African American, Hispanic, and Asian. But for my regression analysis, I need this to be coded into a 0 or 1. So I'm going to say exam $, and then the name of the new variable that I want. So why don't I just call it white? And we'll use the recode command, and we'll say the column that I want to recode is exam race, and then I want to take 0 as my old value and put it to 1, and then a semicolon, and then I want to create a vector and put 1s, 2s, and 3s into a 0. So it's the old value, the original value on the left, the new value on the right. When I run that and look at, I guess we'll say summary tools, frequency of exam white, you see how I had 24 zeros, now I have 24 zeros, and I had 12 plus 9 plus 4 is 25, 25 zeros now, and 24 ones. So it just took everything and changed it up. Another way that you might recode is by reverse coding. So this happens when you want to create a scale. There might be something that's pointing in the opposite direction. So one way to do that is with the same command. So we'll say flavor. I guess I'll show you it first. Summary tools, frequency, flavor, favorite. And I know it doesn't really make sense to reverse code favorite because whatever, but the principle is the same. I'm going to take everything that's a 1 and make it a 4. Everything that's a 2 and make it a 3. Everything that's a 3, I'm going to make it a 2, and a 4, I'm going to make it a 1. And the way to do that is flavor, again, whatever new name you want. So I'm going to say fav reverse code, assign recode flavor favorite is where my original data is. 1 equals 4, semicolon, 2 equals 3, 3 equals 2, 4 equals 1. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 on the left, and 4, 3, 2, 1 on the right. Run that. Now summary tools, frequency, flavor, $, favorite reverse code. So now I've got 3 people who are a 1, 8 who are a 2, and 11 at the 3s and 4s. See how that's just reversed coded? Now if you don't understand where that's applicable, then you need to get more into scales and know how to use those. And I'll talk more about scales in my next video, which will be about statistics. So thank you very much. See you soon.